Now, it's no secret that MG's had a bit of a bumpy history with the cars it makes. It's made everything from sports cars to ones powered by V8s, but now it makes these. Now, the MG nameplate was bought by the SAIC Motor Group, and now we're getting cars like this. There's a clear focus on providing cars for the masses rather than building niche sports cars. Now, the main appeal for this car is its price. The MG HS Plus EV starts from a smidge under $50,000 drive away, but this is the Essence model, which gets a few more bits of tech and comfort features, which means that you're gonna be paying a bit over $51,000 drive away. Now, what do you get? Well, you get LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. I like how these look, and they actually have a nice bit of attention to detail with the SAIC light technology little logo printed on the inside. I like that a lot. There's a bit of chrome around this car. I'm not a big fan of chrome, but it seems to play nicely with this silver paint, and I do like the grille design, and of course that giant MG logo to let you know that this is an MG. But to be honest, for a basic front design, this is a pretty good looking one. Now, along the side we have 18-inch alloy wheels, which are wrapped in a Michelin tire, and we'll see how those perform out on the road. But I do like the design of these wheels quite a lot. We have plastic cladding around the wheel arches down below, some chrome. We have some more chromola door handles, which does have keyless entry and exit. And we also have our roof rails, which means you can load stuff up here on the roof. Now, the entire design along here is meant to be inoffensive, and it's not meant to divide opinions, because this MG is meant to be sold to as many people as possible. And if you create something that's a little bit divisive or a little bit, you know, something that might be a bit subjective, if you like it or not as many people are gonna buy it. So that's why we have quite a basic exterior. But then what I do like is I like this little haunch here, which you can see when you're driving. It just gives it a bit more of a shape and something a bit more interesting than just a flat side. And then here's one of our two fuel filler doors. There's one on the other side for our charge door, but then this one is for your petrol. And then finally, finishing off the design here, I like the rear light clusters. They look pretty good. They're progressive indicators as well. And then we have SAIC light technology stamped on the inside there. This rear wiper, yes, it's sort of stuck on. I do like ones that are hidden up in the roof spoiler, but this one has a bit of a missing trim piece on it. I hope that's just our press car that has a missing trim piece, and that's not something how it comes, because it just looks a little bit questionable without it. And then we also have MG Pilot here, which I thought this was a special edition badge, to be honest, but this is actually something that MG puts on their cars to let you know it's got all their safety systems, like the forward collision warning, like rear cross traffic alert, you got cameras, you've got active lane keep assist. So all those safety systems are bundled up into what MG calls their Pilot system. So it's not a special edition, and that's just something that lets you know that car has it. So we also have the FEV badge below the HS badge back here to let you know this is a plug-in hybrid. Now, this MG comes with a power tailgate, which is nice and useful and easy to adjust. If you want it to go a bit lower, you just hold down this button here and it sets the height, which I found very useful. And then you go ahead and you have a flat load floor, which is very good. Again, makes pulling items in and out a lot easier, something you want in an SUV. Now, storage below the boot floor is very limited, but there is a little bucket there in the foam below this little boot floor, and that's really for your charging cable that comes with this car, and I've left mine at home, so then you get a spare little pocket to put some other items in that you may not want to jump around in this boot space. Now, we do have a cargo cover, which is very easy to use, you know, very simple as you would expect a cargo cover to operate. And in the back here, we have around 451 liters of cargo space, and it's a decently usable space for a smaller SUV like this. But if you want to get even more space, you'll have to go ahead and fold the seats down in a 60-40 split. And so unfortunately, to fold the seats down, there's no buttons in the back here. Instead, you have to fold the little tabs on the seats, and they just push forward and they lock in place. And it just makes putting items all the way through nice and easy. And there's no real big divot or ditch to throw items over. It's a nice continuous load floor, so it actually means you can easily pull items in and out without having to make it a struggle. But jumping into the MG, it's nice and easy of an opening. I like the interior design here. I was a little bit disoriented at first because I haven't really experienced an MG, but as I've used this more and more, I've really gotten used to it and really actually liked the layout here. I also appreciate how tightly buttoned down everything is in this cabin. There's no weird squeaks or rattles. You know, you can push on things, pull on things, and you feel like this car will stand the test of time, which is a good thing for a relatively new manufacturer. Now, materials used, we have plenty of soft touch materials. We also have this leather material up on the doors with stitching all through it. It does have an interesting smell though. It's not really quite new car smell. It feels just a little bit more artificial. So I would just hope that's something maybe that could be rectified in future cars. There's gloss black plastics in here, but they're not on major touch surfaces, which I greatly appreciate. There's only some around the shifter, and then these other ones around the aircon vents up here, which actually look quite cool and feel nice to interact with. There's a nice little click in there as well. So look, if it's something that's worrying you about the build quality of the interior, that's something that definitely isn't an issue here. I actually really like this car and how it's put together. These seats especially are very comfortable, nice bolstering. They're electronic on both sides as well, which is good. Some brands don't give you both electric seats at this price point. In addition, we have this flat bottom steering wheel, which is wrapped in leather. Again, this feels good in the hand, and I like the textured material they put at the 9.3 mark, so it really feels like you've got something that is nice to hold. So I have a 12-inch screen in front of me as my driver's display, and I have a 10-inch screen as the infotainment screen. And before I get into what's into them, I just have to make a note that these things need a bit of a user experience update in terms of just being a bit more responsive. When you're interacting with this car, and the fact that all of the main functions are put through the center screen here, you have to have a pretty flawless user experience. And I've just found this center screen just to be a little bit too laggy for my liking, especially when I've been driving. Sometimes it's reset on me, which has been a little bit annoying. That's only happened twice. And then I had an issue where I couldn't change my climate controls when I was using Apple CarPlay for some reason, and it just became a little bit frustrating a little bit too early on. Now, this center screen here, yes, it's a pretty decent and simple user interface, but it's just the experience of it just being a tiny bit laggy that can be a bit frustrating. But we do have access to Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto all through this screen, and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are wired, hence why I have this wire here, and I'll show you why I've got it there in a second. We have our navigation here as well, which when you load on it, it does take a little while to load up, which again is something that feels like a bit of a road bump here in the user experience. But once that's loaded up, it is a basic system. So in the settings here on the navigation, you can actually go to useful information, which I haven't really seen on any other navigation systems. And you can go to, you know, your basic where am I, help nearby. You can learn when the sunrise and sunset happens in where you are. And also you can have country information, and it literally has every single country listed here and the different driving laws. So if you're crossing into the ACT, the Northern Territory, Queensland, you can learn about their different driving laws, which is interesting. So we can see here in Australia, we have 50 km/h speed limits in towns, 100 on the countryside, 110 on the expressways, 110 on motorways. We've got a phone country code as well, an emergency number, and what your maximum blood alcohol content is, which I found hilarious. And if you want a bit of time to just go through these and just do a bit of a boredom busting bit of trivia, you can go and see what the blood alcohol content is in Brazil that's allowed for you to drive. Now, you can either navigate using the screen or these hard buttons down below. So there is a dedicated home button, love that. And then you've got your HVAC controls, which are all locked in here. There's no real hard buttons for the HVAC other than the rear, front and rear defrosters. And then you've also got a pretty simple interface here, which I can appreciate. You've got heated seats as well. And I found the automatic controls this car had in its HVAC controls to be quite effective, especially in this temperature. It's a bit mild, but when it gets hotter, that would be the ultimate test to see how that automatic air conditioning works. But right now, I haven't really had to jump into this system all that much unless I wanted heated seats. And there is a quick shortcut here on the hard buttons as well. And then if you go to the main screen, we have our phone connectivity, we have a car settings. So if you jump into here, you have your systems for your speed assist systems, lane assist systems, your MG pilot system, so you can turn on and off certain safety systems. You've got comfort and convenience settings as well. So you've got ambient lighting through here, which actually you can program to pulse or just have it on any type of color you want in here, which is quite fun, and it gets nice and bright at night. And you've also got your driving and maintenance control as well, so you can turn your stability control on and off there, and you can also control what sort of battery level you want when you're charging it or when using it as well. And then you've got some weird controls which feel like something that you shouldn't have access to, like factory resetting stuff. Usually that stuff would be left to dealerships, but I found that this infotainment system gives you a lot of control, and it gives you a lot of information that you might not need, but I can appreciate that it's there. What I do like is that if you want to control your volume here, you have your EQ settings, which are quite cool. So it's like an advanced way to tune your sound. There are presets, but you can go ahead and just adjust different hertz along the way. And I really think that's quite nice, especially if you want to really tune these speakers. They're not the best speakers in the world, but it's nice to have that control over them. It's excellent. And then to wrap it all up, we do have a 360-degree parking camera, which is very useful. It is a tiny bit laggy to use when you want to go around the 3D version of this car. It's not as seamless as Kia and Hyundai's ones, but nonetheless, it's very useful to have. The resolution's okay. It is still pretty useful, and I especially like how you can see your wheels here as well if you're parking, which is very useful. So yes, I do like this 360-degree parking camera in this screen. Now in front of me, I have the driver's screen, which is a little bit laggy with how the dials jump up and down, but it doesn't make it unusable by any means. And now the center stack down here, yes, you have some hard buttons for your boot, your 360-degree camera. I like how everything has a quick setting to it as well in hard buttons. So yes, they have put all your functionality through the screen, but at least there are tactile buttons to get to them, which is very good. You have 2 USB ports up front and a 12-volt socket, and then you've also got a dedicated button to turn this car on into its EV mode. Now, back seat room is quite nice in this car. I really like the packaging in this car. Like, look, you can say what you want about this, if you like the design or not, but you can't argue that this car has been thoroughly well designed to make it a practical and easy to live with SUV, and especially with the second row. I'm a 5'11" adult back here, and I have plenty of feet room for my size 11 feet underneath the seats in front. And then I've also got plenty of knee room here. This is in my driving position, and I have a lot of knee room for a small SUV like this. And then I also have a decent amount of headroom. So even adults up to about 6'1", 6'2" will still have a comfortable time back here. And it helps that these seats also recline simply by moving this little latch back here. It's not an elegant process, but you can at least get a nice reclined position back here. Now, as terms of places to charge, you have 2 USB ports in the middle. We have some air vents back here, which is nice to see, and we have some map pockets as well. And then I can take full advantage of our giant glass roof, which does open so you can get airflow into this car, or simply enjoy the glass roof or have it closed because this has a hard shade. Now, this center armrest here has some cup holders that pop open, but they're not ginormous, so they're not going to fit big sort of water bottles. Instead, I would put them into the side door panels here. And then we also have a little area to store small items. And I like how this is felt lined, very premium, and also the stitching, very nice as well. Again, build quality back here is very impressive from a brand like MG. I am actually quite taken back by how well this car is put together. Now, I've actually been impressed by how this car's been presented to me when it's just sitting still, but how does it drive? So this is a plug-in hybrid, which means it has a petrol motor and it also has an electric motor, and the combined output between this 4-cylinder turbocharged unit and this electric motor is just under 200 kilowatts and just under 400 newton meters of torque. So there are some pretty impressive figures for a car like this. I've heard the petrol variants of this car can feel a little bit on the underpowered side, but definitely when you add a turbocharged unit plus an electric motor, you're getting a lot of punch for a car of this size. Now, initial startup and drive, when you start up this thing in the morning, it seems to want to kick the petrol motor in no matter what, and it basically says EV entry mode not support. Yeah, broken English warning symbols can be a little bit hard to understand in the gauge classes, so I wish that's something that could be rectified. Seems something that could be really simple to fix, but aside from that, you do have a bit of a lockout into EV mode sometimes. And that essentially just means that the petrol motor needs to be kept on for accessory power, or essentially just the fact that the car doesn't want to go into full EV mode just yet. I would like a bit more control and just being able to go into EV mode all the time and really make the most of that 60-kilometer range. It's just over 60 kilometers claimed, but I found real world usage to be around 60 Ks of usage from a full battery. And what's good as well is that you can charge this from a normal household plug in your garage, and it will charge up overnight just fine using the included cable that comes with this car. I found it really useful, and I've been able to charge this thing up every day and not have an empty battery. I love that. So it's really quick to charge. Now I'm in EV mode right now, and you can hear it's nice and quiet, right? So if I go to put some more meat down into the pedal, the petrol motor doesn't kick in, which I really appreciate. And you keep doing that, and you can use electric power. And what's good with an electric motor is that even though this has just under 100 kilowatts of power on its own, it really feels nice and strong, and it feels like you've got a healthy amount of torque underneath your foot, and it just makes daily driving quite fun. Now, this is front wheel drive, so it's interesting that how the power's been put down through these front wheels is nice and controlled, and I don't have any sort of issues with slippage. And even in the wet, if you're just like even 50% of the throttle, you won't get wheel spin, which I really appreciate. So this car is pretty good at dialing itself in. But then the issue of adding a battery pack like this is the extra weight. And to combat the extra weight, which would create for more of a harsh ride, is that you soften up the suspension. So this car has a bit of a softy, lofty sort of suspension feel, and it does feel a little bit heavier than a normal petrol equivalent might feel like, because it's got both an electric drivetrain and a petrol tank with a petrol motor. And then if you want to engage that petrol motor, it will either do it by itself, or you can go ahead and click EV mode to turn it off, that hard button, then you'll go into auto charge mode. And you can feel that motor come into life. It's pretty obvious when it's on and off. I've heard some people complain that it's not exactly the most seamless experience, but to be honest, it's a lot less harsh than it was on the Kia Sorento hybrid, which was a lot more vocal when it turned on and off. But here, it's pretty subtle, and there's enough sound deadening there to sort of, you know it's there when it's vibrating away in the background, but it's not a really annoying sound. So then you're going to put your foot down and you actually get a healthy amount of power from here. So to go into deep into the pedal, up a hill, the car does like to move. So what's good is that if you load this car up, it won't feel like this car is terribly underpowered, especially with that electric drivetrain. And additionally, you don't have to charge that battery up every night. So if you are going on a long trip, the just keeping it off EV mode will allow the car to make the most of the battery and petrol, and then it will try and charge the battery when it can at lower speed. So it's quite good to have that combination if you're someone who frequents leaving metropolitan areas and you're going on country drives, or don't really have access to fast chargers. By the way, you don't have to connect it to a fast charger if you don't want to. It's well, one, doesn't have a DC fast charging connector, but two, it charges relatively fast enough for my household plug. And so what fuel economy figures have I been getting? Well, checking out my trip information live here, I've been averaging around 5 liters per 100 Ks and around 12.4 kilowatt hours with the battery. So to be honest, very efficient. You're making the most of that petrol in the tank, and that is really appealing with this car. Now, what's nice is that this has a very comfortable ride. Those smaller alloy wheels, so they haven't been tempted to throw 19s or 20s on here, it really helped with that extra meat on the tire. These tires have a nice amount of grip to them. I do love Michelin's, who doesn't? And they do feel nice and planted to the ground. What is apparent is there's a very vague steering feel here. It's a bit artificially weighted, so it feels a bit heavy in the hand, but it's fine. You know where your wheels are, but it's definitely like a really basic steering feel. But what I like is that even when the petrol motor is kicked in, it's still a quiet driving experience. What I will say though is that the styrofoam they put underneath the boot floor does seem to squeak a bit, which is just a little bit annoying when you've got nothing in the car, and you can definitely hear that over some bumps. But in terms of other squeaks and rattles, none. Everything feels nicely put together, and it's a very relaxing daily driving experience. And this car is very easy to live with, and I especially love being able to switch into EV mode when I can. And I just really have seen that fuel gauge move so slowly over the week I've been driving this. Okay, so truthfully, I wouldn't have actually recommended an MG before driving one. All those sort of stereotypes of what these cars are like, I was just like, you know what, probably check out something that's a bit more tried and tested. Now, I've tried and tested this thing, and I can tell you now, this is a very impressive car if you're looking for an ideal daily driver. This one here in its plug-in hybrid, guys, is what's really blowing me away in terms of making it an extra bit more impressive. Now, driving around electric power and how quick this battery is to charge every day is a major plus, especially when fuel prices are going up and up or fluctuating like they are now. It's especially good to have a car that sips away and makes the most of the petrol you put in it. The technology and safety features also work very well in here, and overall this would be a pretty decent car to go check out if you're looking for a medium-sized SUV that also is electrified. Now, yes, it is a bit boring, and that's something that if you're looking for a bit more flair in your daily driving, well, this isn't gonna fulfill that. In addition, some small quality issues are, just something that I hope get fixed on future cars, and a bit different from my press car, like that door handle and the user experience in terms of the speed of which the screens operate. If they just operated a bit faster, it'd be a lot more fun to interact with this car. But after using this thing for the week, I don't think that's a major deal breaker, but it is something to consider. So this has been our first MG review, and I've been pretty impressed with what they've offered so far, but I hope with some small updates and improvements, they'll come out with even more stronger products, because it's nice and refreshing to see a car that's focused on delivering value first and then giving you everything you might need. Now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Cameron. This is Product Review Cars, and I'll see you in the next one.